Hi everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the idea of solving systems with the equal values method. So last time we learned about solving systems by graphing, so today we're just learning a different method of doing the same types of problems. So go ahead and follow along with me on your notes. The solution of a system of equations is the coordinate, again, x comma y, at which the equations intersect. So another method for solving systems is called the equal values method. With this method, both equations can be made into slope intercept form and set equal to one another. Remember, slope intercept form is y equals mx plus b form. So if the equations are in y equals mx plus b form, we can just set them equal to one another. Okay, so let's get started. To solve each of the systems of equations, here's the first example. So the whole idea behind this is we're trying to get an answer that has x comma y. All right? So I see the equations. It says y equals 4x plus 2 and y equals negative x minus 3. The whole idea behind this is that if I have equal values, I can just set them equal to each other. So if y equals 4x plus 2 and y equals negative x minus 3, then it must be true that 4x plus 2 is equal to negative x minus 3. All I'm saying here is that y is equal to y. So I just take this y and I put it here, and this y, and I put it here. Okay. A different way to think about this is that if y equals 4x plus 2, then I can also replace this second y with 4x plus 2. So that's how I get 4x plus 2 equals negative x minus 3. That's the main idea behind this today. So let me go ahead and write that over so we can solve it out. So 4x plus 2 equals negative x minus 3. Now, I've gotten rid of the y's, so I can just solve for x. How you solve for x, you want to keep your equal sign in the middle. What I'm going to recommend is that you just start using some zero pairs. You can either move from left to right or right to left. Okay, so first I want to get all of my x's to one side. So if I get all of my x's to the left side, then I need to get this negative x over to the other side. How do I get rid of it? I add 1x. Remember, this is like a 1. So I add 1x. This makes a zero pair. So now 4x plus 1x, that's 5x. I bring down the positive 2. So that's plus 2. And then I bring down the negative 3 equals negative 3. So now I've just got 5x plus 2 equals negative 3. Well, now I've got all my x's on one side, but I want to get all my non-x's, so all my numbers, my positive 2 and my negative 3, on the same side. So again, I split my equation in the middle, and I use zero pair, or the inverse operation of addition. And I subtract 2, and I got to keep it balanced, so I subtract 2 here. Now the whole purpose of this is so that I can get x alone to figure out y. That's 0, so 5x equals negative 5. This is multiplication, so I use the inverse operation of multiplication, and I divide by 5. And I just figured out that x equals negative 1. That's part of my answer. Now to figure out what y equals, I can use either of these equations. I can use either one. I like the first equation better, so I'm going to write it right here. So y equals 4x plus 2. Now that I know what x equals, I can just substitute it in for the x. So I'm going to write y equals 4, parentheses, -1. I replace the x plus 2. So that's y equals -4. I multiplied 4 and -1 plus 2. And -4 plus 2 makes -2. So y is equal to -2. So my final answer, my solution, is -1, -2. So again, you want to set them equal to each other, solve for x, and then substitute in to solve for y. So let's give example 2 a try. Example 2 has a little bit of an issue. I can look at the first one and it's in y equals mx plus b form. But the second one is not in y equals mx plus b form. So just like we did at the beginning of the semester, we have to solve the second equation so that it's y equals something. So -4x plus 2y equals -2. And I want to try and get y by itself. So I'm going to do this quickly because we should know how to do this by now. I'm going to add 4x to both sides. This creates a 0 pair. So now I've got 2y equals 4x minus 2. I just brought this down. And I divide everything by 2. So that makes y equals 4 divided by 2 is 2x. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So y equals 2x minus 1. So now I've got 2x minus 1 is equal to y. And I've got x plus 2 is equal to y. So if y is equal to y, then that means x plus 2 is equal to 2x minus 1. Now I've gotten rid of the y's so I can solve using inverse operations. Okay, so let me show you the other way that you can do this. If this is a 1x, I can also get rid of that 1. I can get the x on my other side. So I'm going to subtract 1x, because that makes a 0 pair. I subtract 1x here to keep it balanced. So now I've got positive 2 equals 1x minus 1. Now I want to get all of my non-x's to the left side, to this side. So I add 1, and then I add 1 here. So that's a 0 pair. So 3 is equal to 1x. Again, I just figured out half of my answer. 3, comma, something. Again, how do I figure out that next y value? I can use either of these equations. I like this one up here. So y equals x plus 2. But instead of this x, I can put in positive 3. So that's y equals positive 3 plus 2. So y equals 5. And 3 comma 5 is my final answer. Okay. This again would be a good place to pause, ask questions, and start to figure out what is a pattern that you notice in these problems. Here's example 3. This one, both equations are in y equals mx plus b form. So again, I'm saying that y is equal to y. So if y is equal to y, then negative 5x plus 3 is equal to negative 2x. So now I can solve this equation for x. I already have my x's on the right side, and there's nothing else with it. So what would be nice is if I could get rid of this negative 5x so that all my x's are on one side and all my non-x's are on the other side. So I add 5x, add 5x. This makes a 0 pair, so that's positive 3 equals positive 3x. This is multiplication, so I use the inverse operation, which is division. I divide by 3. So x is equal to 1. Again, I've got half of my answer, so x is 1. Now that I know what x equals, I can plug it into either equation. I like this one, so I'm going to plug in x, or plug in 1 for that x, substitute in 1 for that x. So y equals negative 2x. I'm going to put this 1 instead of the x, so I'm going to write y equals negative 2 multiplied by 1. So y is equal to negative 2. And that was my y value. So my solution is 1 comma negative 2. Example 4. I look at the first equation. The first equation is not in y equals mx plus b form. The second equation is in y equals mx plus b form. So that first one, I need to solve it so I can get y alone. So 4x plus 2y equals negative 2. Subtract 4x, create a zero pair, subtract 4x to keep it balanced. So now I've got 2y equals negative 4x minus 2. I divide 2. So that's y is equal to negative 2x minus 1. Okay, so now I've got this equation in y equals mx plus b form, and this equation in y equals mx plus b form. So let's do some extra color coding in this one. So if green y is equal to red y, then I can just take my green equation, negative 2x minus 1, and set it equal to my red equation, negative 4x plus 3. Again, here I can just solve for x. I can start from either side. So I can add 2x, that creates a zero pair, add 2x, so now I've got negative 1 equals negative 2x, I bring down my positive 3. And now I want to keep the x's alone here, so I want to get rid of this positive 3. So I subtract 3, that creates a zero pair. So now I've got negative 2x equals negative 4. I still want to get x alone, so I'm going to divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2. So x is equal to positive 2. My x value is positive 2. Now I need to figure out my y value. I can use either equation. So I'm going to use this red equation, y equals negative 4x plus 3. I'm going to substitute in x as 2. So that's now going to be y equals negative 4 multiplied by 2 plus 3. So that's y equals negative 8 plus 3, which is y equals negative 5. So my final answer, my solution, is 2 comma negative 5. Again, this would be a good place to pause. Try the next two examples on your own and check your work. I'm going to do these relatively quickly since we've got an idea of how this goes. So y equals 2x plus 3, y equals negative 2x minus 1. So if blue y equals my green y, then 2x plus 3 from here is equal to negative 2x minus 1 from here. I split my equation and I start creating zero pairs. I'm going to add 2x, this makes 0. I'm going to bring down my negative 1, bring down my 3, and 4x. So 4x plus 3 equals negative 1. This 4x is almost alone, but I want to get rid of this 3, so I'm going to use a zero pair or an inverse operation, however you want to think about it. So 4x is equal to negative 4. Here I need to use the inverse operation of multiplication. I divide 4 on both sides, so x is equal to negative 1. Now I just need to figure out my y value. I can use either of these equations. I'm going to use y equals 2x plus 3. But instead of the x, I'm going to write negative 1. So y equals 2 times negative 1 plus 3. So that's y is equal to negative 2 plus 3. Y is equal to positive 1. And that is my final answer for this problem, negative 1 comma positive 1. Example 6. This is another situation. Y equals mx plus b, that's fine. However, this green equation is in standard form, so I have to solve it. So negative 9x plus 3y equals negative 12. I add 9x to both sides. That creates a zero pair, so 3y equals 9x minus 12. I divide by 3, all across. So y is equal to 3x minus 4. This green equation, this blue equation, they're both in y equals mx plus b. So blue y equals green y, then blue y, x plus 4, is equal to green y, which is 3x minus 4. Create my split. This is like a 1x. I'm going to subtract that off. So now I've got 4 equals 2x minus 4. 3x minus 1x made this 2x. And the negative 4 is just brought down. Now I've got the 2x here, so what would be nice is if I could get rid of this negative 4. So how do I do that? I do the opposite. I add 4 here. So that's 8 equals 2x. That's 2 multiplied by x, so I use the inverse operation, which is division. And now x is equal to 4. So if x equals 4, that's the first number in my coordinate. And now I can take this and plug it into either equation. I like the blue equation. It looks a little simpler. Y equals x plus 4. But instead of this x, I'm going to put 4. So y equals 4 plus 4. Pretty basic. Y is equal to 8. So my final answer here, the solution is 4, 8. If you have any questions, please raise your hands. Please let me know. Have a great day.